So lately in my life, a big thing I've been trying to work on is viewing confusion, viewing feeling lost as a step forward rather than backwards. I think when you feel that you have something figured out and then you realize you didn't have it figured out, we dissuade ourselves from doing that, right? We like to just comfortably sit ourselves in a box of what we assume to know and not try to go out of that box because it's an uncomfortable process to admit, like, I didn't know, I don't know that, right? And because of this, I think it leads to us not challenging our ideas enough, not trying to grow enough, and viewing confusion as a step backwards. And when more times than not, it really is a step forwards. In the spirit of me trying to make this change my life, I want to come here and say that I've been feeling lost lately with what Paint and Talk is, what I want my output to be, and namely in my art. I don't come here at all to do like a sort of, like, oh, pity me thing. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. This isn't, at the end of the day, this isn't actually even a real issue, but this series is about me growing. Like, this series is supposed to be, the whole ethos behind Paint Talk is about showing my art, what it is, where it's going, where it's been, and hopefully growing along the way with you guys. So in that spirit, I want to come here and I want to say this. And namely, what started my path of confusion was a call with one of you. You might be watching right now. Shout out to you if you are. And I was talking to them about Paint Talk, right? I wanted to ask somebody who's viewed the series that came out about the series and, like, how to improve it, how things could be better. I'm constantly trying to improve, and I found myself kind of at an impasse. And one of you was more than nice enough to speak about it, talk about the series and what you would want to see from it. Very productive conversation that led to basically probably the most obvious answer. I'm sure many of you watching this are going to hear this answer and be like, yeah, duh. That the series needs to be recentered around, me, just the paintings improving and everything else, and the idea of trying to up the quality of things or do anything in that direction needs to be in service of that one central thing, right? And very productive, and it got me thinking, to influence the last couple episodes of Paint Talk, right? It's been the last week, I guess, of Paint Talk ever since I've returned from being away. And it's been great. It really helpful advice directly. But it got me actually thinking while I was gone, more so about everything I do, like about all my art, about all my, everything I put out there, right? Whether that be on this channel, on the main channel, which I still work on stuff for, even though I haven't uploaded in a while, and every other area I create art. And it made me think about, like, I feel as though I've sort of lost my guiding principles along the way of doing all these things. I want to tell a little bit of background to illustrate what I'm talking about here. So I wasn't creating art on the internet for a long time. I was away from the internet. I was like, I don't want to do anything with the internet. I thought that all of my output artistically would be in the corporate world through graphic design and through working with companies, establishing brands, things like that. I was like, that will be art for me. And the idea of doing it in any other capacity was foreign to me. I don't know what it was, but one day I was watching a video about Virgil Abloh. I was watching one of his lectures, and I literally was just like, okay, I'm just gonna upload stuff. I'm gonna put stuff on Instagram and just display the art, right? It started with a very seriously sincere idea of, like, I like painting, I like drawing, I like, writing, and I just want to put it out there. No matter what, I want to put it out there. And it started as that great idea. As the second I did it, I don't know if it was the second I hit publish on the first video, the second I sat down to record the first video, the second I sat down to edit the first video, everything changed. It felt, not that, I ever lost any enjoyment from it. I still feel a great amount of passion for everything I do. This isn't going to be one of those videos. It wasn't the enjoyment that went away. It was the idea of sharing the art being at the center of it was laughable, right? There was no sharing of art going on. At most, I was not selling any sort of art, not selling in the literal sense. I was not putting out any sort of art, though. I was maybe at best arguably selling the idea of art, selling an aesthetic of some sort of creativity. And that's the journey I went through over the last year, over being like, I'm going to make, this channel, I'm going to put my art up, start putting it up, doing stuff there, didn't like it, felt it was too calculated. I don't know, I've spoken a lot on this channel about how, like, sort of algorithms and things of that sort can, like, totally the second you enter something like that, it almost just like corrupts any sort of ideas you would have had, any sort of pure ideas you would have had get corrupted once you start entering all these ideas of like, how do I succeed? You know, yesterday we were just discussing niches, and I think that's a great example of like being like, what's my niche? How do I market this? All that stuff just kills the creativity. And whilst I don't feel my creativity's been entirely dead, I think the nice concept of making something to share art, of making this pure sharing exercise, was dead the second I started because of these forces, because of, you know, the idea of an algorithm, the idea of an audience. You know, this is something that continues. This is a journey that is definitely still going for me, trying to move away from that mindset. Like today I was writing and I couldn't stop thinking about how the words would sound in a video, but how the lighting would look if I were to speak them in a video. And this is a piece of writing I had no intention of ever making a video with. I still don't. Like, it's, you know, something that is entirely to stay on my computer just for me, and I could not stop thinking about it. And that's weird. Like, that's, I don't know what it is. I think it's just a sign of me uploading things, kind of making the art that I do less pure, right? This is the feeling I've been having. This is the feeling of lostness that I've been having, that thinking about where Paint Talk has gone got me thinking about, because I was like, wow, Paint Talk has, I've removed many of the elements of sitting talking about art while improving art, and that's why I've been making an effort to add them back, an effort I will continue, and I'll discuss more at the end of this video too. And this has happened with all my art, you know, all of it is in that same place. I felt almost, well, not felt, I feel that I need to re-examine how I create from the ground up, and that's what I want to do. I want to re-examine how I look at art, how I create art, how I go about making art from the ground up, to center everything around honesty, to center everything around the grounding principles of, I want to make art that's pure, and I want to share that pure art. I don't want to let anything else get in the way. That is what I'm feeling lost about. I feel I've lost that sense of the pureness. Like, it almost felt like, you know, if I came up with the idea of sharing my art on the internet, if that was me getting $1 to put into a vending machine, it feels like I've spent the last year crumpling up that dollar, so there's no way it'll ever get taken by the vending machine. The vending machine not so much being anything other than my own satisfaction with my own creativity, right? And that's the way that I'm viewing this. So in that spirit, I want to discuss what the next couple Paint Talks will be about, because, well, it may not even be the next couple. It might not even, you know, it might be one tomorrow, and then one in 3 weeks. It might be, you know, I don't know what order it'll take place in, but I want to talk about what Paint Talks is going to turn into, or what rather it's going to go back to being. Because I do feel, you know, I've enjoyed a lot of the topics we've discussed in the show, a ton. Like, I even like down to the more abstract stuff, like 2 days ago, discussing the idea of like consensus reality fading away. I think these things are things I'm passionate about, they're things I'm thinking of, and this series is going to be about the authenticity. So those things will still be here. I do feel though that we've kind of gone away from just discussing art and like what cool art is, and you know, how to go about creating art. Where it's like waking up in the morning and trying to come up with something new to make, and all these things that are so important to the process. You know, I want to reanalyze my own way of doing things in a productive way. I want to uncrumple my dollar through the course of doing this with you guys, because, you know, I like I said, I'm feeling a little confused right now. I'm feeling a little lost. I want to embrace that feeling rather than running from it, because that's how progress is often made. And I want to view this in the lens of Paint Talk as a real development in an artistic journey, rather than any sort of idea to run from, any sort of going backwards. I want to view it that way. I want to make things that way, because that's what this series is supposed to be about. This episode took me, I was like sitting outside of this cube where I recorded these. I was sitting outside there for an hour trying to think of how to word this. So my apologies. This has been the hardest episode ever to make for me. But that is really the essence of what I'm speaking about here. I feel that this series has grown a bit lost from what it was meant to be. And I feel that as a result of it, you know, even though this series has been great, I mean, like, I've learned to paint way better than I ever had before, all these things, even though it's been great, I do feel that artistically I'm still 5 steps away from where I want to be, right? I think maybe I had to step these 10 steps away over the last 2 years to go grab the skills necessary to share my art on the internet, to be good enough at this to make it worthwhile. You know, maybe, I guess that's an angle you could take for it. You know, that's plausible. But I want to step back. I want to get back to that pure place. I want to uncrumple my dollar and reset the guiding principles around this. And that's the first idea that I came to talk about today. That I did talk about, rather, I guess, throughout this whole episode, was this idea of guiding principles in art. It's the first step, I believe, in sort of burning down what I had perceived to be my creative journey, to rebuild it, is looking at my guiding philosophy, how I started all this, how I want to continue all this, and saying, what am I thinking that I need to center everything around, right? Namely Paint Talk. This is what I do the most, right? I still work on videos, like I said, for the main channel, but Paint Talk is really what's going on right now. It's what I'm enjoying doing, right? So what's the guiding philosophy of Paint Talk? What does everything need to be centered around? Sharing art in the most unfiltered way, sharing my artistic journey, what I'm thinking about while I'm making art, and my paintings as I learn to paint over the course of a year. That is what Paint and Talk is about, and that is what I need to center everything around. Which means some very, normal, dumb, aesthetic things that I've already taken the steps to do, right? For an example, making the thumbnails back to just photos of me going like, that's the example of one of them. No flash, nothing that signals this is a good video, just putting things out there. That is how this started. I mean, this whole set is like made with that idea in mind. I want this to be a sea of just off-white, and this you just see me, you see the painting, because that's all that's supposed to be here, right? So centering ideas, topics, more so around what I'm thinking about in relation to art and the journey itself. It also means recentering the other social medias that are related to Paint and Talk in a very similar fashion. So like, this is something that I'm still thinking about, so I'm not going to say I have a complete answer to it. I want to, think about this a little bit off camera even, because it is kind of just like random shop talk, I suppose. It's not probably not the most interesting thing, but recentering, like, what is the TikTok page going to be? How can you use, I have TikTok, I have Instagram, I have YouTube. How can I take those three things, those unique platforms to put things on that have very different ways of sharing things? How can I share on those platforms in ways that takes advantage of the formats, the photo format for Instagram, the long form video format for here, and the short form video format for TikTok? How can I take these things and use them in an appropriate way to be centered still around showing the journey of art? That's all I want to do, right? That's going to be an answer that comes along. That's not going to be an answer that comes right away. I can think of a few things right now that might not even happen. For an example, I kind of am thinking I'm going to take the paintings to post daily and put that on TikTok, because I think TikTok is more suited towards not spam content, but towards posting things more frequently. I like TikTok for that. Whereas Instagram, I kind of like it to be a more higher quality curated feed, right? So that's like a small example of something I've thought to maybe do. But it's gonna, that's another thing that's gonna take a while to figure out. What does that look like? What does that mean? How do I recenter everything around these guiding principles? I think this is an important thing to think about for art. I think it's something that influences the way we do everything, and I want to allow it to re-influence the way I do everything. So this has been episode 1 of trying to uncrumple my dollar. I think episode 2 will be tomorrow. I want to talk a little bit about like what it means to get into a creative journey. These are things I've been thinking about, and things I do feel that I'm still okay, like relatively confident to talk about, and maybe kind of discussing these very basic subjects. So tomorrow, I want to discuss how to create art again. Maybe the next day I'll discuss some random bullshit, and then 5 days later I'll come back to discussing how to create art once again. But either way, this is the journey I want to go on. Hopefully this paint talk was not too self-serving, too much meta talk, and hopefully you got something out of it. I don't know, but that's how I'm feeling right now. I don't know, I sat out there for like an hour before this to think about like, what do I want to say? How do I want to say it? And now that I'm here and I just finished it all, I have nothing else I want to say, but I felt like I said none of what I wanted to. So sorry, this is probably kind of a weird episode of Paint Talk, but yeah. This might be on the Instagram, maybe it won't be, but either way, follow over there. And the TikTok too, I gotta start linking that. I don't know when, not that I don't know when, I don't know when it'll be there. It might not be by today, maybe by Saturday, because I gotta go and edit the YouTube settings on that. and I try not to go on there too much, but I'm rambling. Check out the painting, wherever it ends up being. Until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This has been Paint Talk episode 241. Until next time, I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.